Two of my close associates from the American Technion Society are here with us today, joining me. Scott Leemaster, who is with his wife Susie, our part-time Santa Fe residents, and Pam Wohl from Los Angeles is ATS's Senior Director of Development for the Western region, including New Mexico. Before we get started with our conversation together, we're going to show you 3 short films about the Technion. The first is called Cornerstone, tracing the history of the Technion dating back to the Zionist visionaries imagining what a Jewish homeland would look like to survive and flourish in an anti-Semitic part of the world. They understood the importance and necessity of establishing a STEM education foundation of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to build a new homeland. The second film, From Spark to Impact, traces the huge strides Israel and its indispensable partner, the Technion, have made in these first 100 years. Finally, Campus at War provides us with a first-hand look at the hostilities Israel is confronting right now and how Technion has responded in so many positive ways. After the films, I'm going to ask questions to our panelists, and we hope to reserve time at the end for some Q&A with our audience.
For decades, the Technion has been making a global impact by turning science into groundbreaking technologies. The beautiful green campus perched on Haifa's Mount Carmel is bustling with talented students and scientists perfecting innovations that will impact our future and help solve major 21st century challenges. They're standing on the shoulders of giants. Technion scientists who have shaped our world and changed the lives of millions, who have discovered new forms of matter, developed revolutionary medications to fight cancer, life-changing drugs for patients with Parkinson's disease, and built an exoskeleton suit that enables paraplegics to walk. Technion researchers and alumni developed advanced drip irrigation technologies for agriculture, which help feed millions of people. They created the world's first cultivated ribeye steak, and the list goes on. The Technion has gained worldwide recognition in quantum research, artificial intelligence, stem cell research, water engineering, robotics, and advanced healthcare. Now that the Technion is kicking off its centennial celebrations, it has rightfully earned its place among the world's leading research universities. The Technion was a driving force in building Israel's science, technology, and engineering infrastructure. And in recent years, it has played a key role in transforming Israel into the tech nation. 100 years of making an impact domestically, globally, and even in space. On our quest to make the world more sustainable and our lives healthier, our mission for the future is to nurture the next generation of global scientific leadership and provide young women and men the knowledge, tools, and inspiration they need to better our world over the next 100 years and beyond.
צה"ל מאשר שלפני שעה קלה עשרות מחבלים חדרו לישראל בכמה מוקדים. אנחנו מנסים להבין.
ב-7 באוקטובר הבנו שאנחנו עומדים בפני אירוע גדול, ומיד כינסנו צוות לחשיבה וסיור מוחות במטרה להבין היכן המשאבים והייחודיות של הטכניון יוכלו לסייע לנו להתמודדות עם המצב. תוך יממה הקמנו מוקד לערבות הדדית. הסגל האקדמי, המנהלי והסטודנטים יוכלו להיכנס לאתר ולבחור האם הם רוצים להתנדב או לקבל סיוע בתחומים שונים. היה ברור לנו שהסיוע שלנו יכלול גם את הקהילה מחוץ לטכניון, למשל שיכון מפונים והקמה של מערך הוראה ארצי.
ההיענות הייתה חסרת תקדים. מהשלב של התכנון הראשוני לתפעול של המוקד להתנדבות בפועל, זכינו בהירתמות מדהימה של מתנדבות ומתנדבים מכל היחידות ובכל הסטטוסים. המוקד לערבות הדדית נחל הצלחה גדולה והוכיח את עצמו לאורך זמן, ולא סתם רוח ההתנדבות, המסירות, המצוינות שלנו הם חלק מה-DNA.
During Iron Swords, we had the opportunity to save the academic year for high school students who were evacuated from their homes as a result attended no academic program. The RoboPhysics program combines math, physics, computer programming, and robotics to allow the students to realize the laws of physics in real-world models that they built. During the week at the Technion, they were also exposed to enrichment lectures by our faculty and get academic credit for it, both for their matriculation exams in physics and towards an introductory course in our department. The feedback we got from students was unbelievable. They wrote it was the first positive thing they'd experienced during the war, that it's their dream to study at the Technion and they're excited to be here, and that they learned a lot from enrichment lectures from our faculty.
Shortly after October 7th, I received a phone call from Dr. Amir Chaim, who was treating a patient called Neta. Neta was severely injured on October 7th by terrorists who attacked her home in Kfar Aza. So we invited her to our lab. We 3D scanned her leg and designed and customized a device especially for her. After a few days, we delivered it to her. It was incredible to see how it worked exactly the way we imagined it would. She also gave us very valuable feedback that could help us improve the device for her and also for future patients. It was very rewarding.
אהלן, זה חני מהנדסת רפואית.
אני שירן גבריאלוק, סטודנטית שנה שלישית להנדסה ביוכימית.
תשמרו על עצמכם, תחזקו אחד את השני, והכי חשוב,
בטוחה בנו שנשמור על מורל גבוה ואנרגיות חיוביות.
וניפגש בטכניון.
On October 7, I've been called off to serve and do my duty as the captain of the operational center in my tank unit. Coming back to the campus was very challenging. The dissonance between wake up every morning and be tense and fight for your life and for your friends to come here and study and listen to professors, it's kind of confusing. I realized there is a great system here who want to support us and help us. The senior management gave us many tools to deal with everything we've been through. For example, the Technion gave me and the other reservists an academic scholarship for the next semester, which gave us financial relief. Another thing the Technion did for us is to provide us one-on-one session with the academic staff.
In the first 2 weeks of the war, the Technion declared a 6,000 shekel scholarship for students in reserves. In addition, me, as a dormitory resident, received 2 months free of charge. These two things really helped me concentrate and focus on my army mission, and it made me feel like the Technion is really appreciating my efforts. As I got back to studies, I was a bit worried because it's my first semester. I missed only a couple of weeks due to the Technion delay of the year, more than other universities. I was also provided reinforcement classes, and I was also offered a psychological treatment to make the shift back to the studies smoother. Because of all the support I got, I'm really glad I chose to study here at the Technion.
We thought this would be a big help to see the visuals before we get into some of the talk. So what is the Technion and its place in the state of Israel? Technion was Israel's first university. Founded in Haifa, its cornerstone was laid in 1912, 36 years before Israel declared independence. Classes began in 1924. So the university and societies around the world are marking its centennial 100th birthday this year. For a century, the Technion has been the beating heart of Israeli innovation. On its campus, generations of students and faculty have transformed groundbreaking ideas into revolutionary technologies that define industries, improve lives, and safeguard Israel. Engineers educated at the Technion quite literally built the state of Israel by establishing the nation's infrastructure for electricity, water, roads, and so on. The Technion is where the startup nation starts. The success of the Technion as an innovation powerhouse can be attributed to two overarching factors, namely its entrepreneurial culture and establishment of the robust university industry transfer process. Israel's economy is increasingly driven by high-tech innovation, disproportionately emanating from the Technion and its graduates. Over half of the Israeli companies traded on NASDAQ were founded by or are run by Technion graduates. These companies account for about half of Israel's industrial exports and about a quarter of its total exports. With a student body of over 14,000 undergraduate and graduate students, the Technion is a vibrant hub of multidisciplinary study. It uniquely combines a world-class engineering institute with a medical school. The university offers degrees in science and engineering and related fields such as architecture, medicine, industrial management, and education. It boasts 3 Nobel laureates, a robust patent portfolio, and is home to 60 research centers, 19 academic departments, and 600 active faculty staff. The Technion campus is in Haifa, the largest city in northern Israel and the 3rd largest city in the state. Haifa is home, as you saw in the movies, to one of the great concentration of high-tech companies in the world, including Intel, Apple, Microsoft, Google, IBM, Hewlett-Packard, Motorola, and so on. Many companies set up operations in and around Haifa, to take advantage of Technion's research power and its exceptionally well-trained graduates. Now, here's a couple of statistics that really caught my eye, one of which I received today from Pam and from our current CEO. New research from the Stanford Graduate School of Business shows that the Technion has a 25-time chance of any other university outside the United States to produce a unicorn. A unicorn is a startup valued at more than $1 billion that is privately owned and not listed on a stock market. Wow. Now listen to this one. More than 70% of Technion graduates are employed in the high-tech sector and have started some 750 companies to date, contributing more than $21 billion to Israel's GDP. The Technion is the catalyst that drives Israeli innovation. And it's this drive that will shape the future of Israel as it emerges from the current war. But these achievements are really just part of the story. The Technion is a microcosm of Israeli society, reflecting its rich diversity. Over 44% of our students are women, and that's steadily growing. 24% of the students are Arab Israelis, mirroring the same percentage as the population. Over 1,000 international students from over 30 countries enrich the campus. In this, our 100th year, Naftali Bennett, Israel's 13th prime minister, has been our special keynote centennial speaker at numerous ATS events around the country. In fact, Scott and I met with him in Los Angeles in January at that gala. And Scott and Susie will be back with him again at the Canada Society event in October, right? Naftali is an enthusiastic, outspoken advocate for the Technion. He learned from firsthand experience the Technion's fundamental impact on Israel's economy and national security. Under Netanyahu's presidency or prime ministership, Naftali served as Minister of Economy starting in 2015, then Minister of Education starting in 2018, and Minister of Defense in 2020. Then sharing power with Yair Lapid in 21 and 22, Naftali's governing coalition was the first in 50 years to include an Arab party. He totally understands the essential role that Technion plays in assuring Israel's survival and economic success. In summary, like Naftali Bennett, we support Technion because it is a beacon of hope and inspiration for others, for our children, for Israel, and I think for the world. Thank you. So we're going to get started now. Pam is going to tell us a little bit about what is the American Technion Society and its relationship to the university. We can start, I think, bringing our chairs over. Scott, you can come up here.
So, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to Chuck and Scott for hosting me here in Santa Fe. So, the American Technion Society is the US-based fundraising organization for the Technion. We were founded back in 1840, and actually Albert Einstein was one of the founding members of our society, and he was the founding member of the first Technion society in the world in Germany. And so in these nearly 85 years, we represent donors, alumni, stakeholders, tens of thousands of supporters around the country. And in this time, we've raised nearly $3 billion for the Technion. That includes raising funds for student scholarships, for research labs, for research from AI to agriculture, from cancer to diabetes, from sustainability to areas of security. Really, the community of ATS has proudly helped to support the Technion. And the reason why the ATS and other societies around the world are so important is because Technion is a public university. And so it's only receiving some part of its budget from the government. And that's why private philanthropy
is so important. And as one example, faculty recruitment is incredibly important and private support for that. And that's because in Israel, salaries are set, and so it's more difficult for Technion to compete with the top universities like MIT, Harvard, Caltech. And so the ways that we can compete is to create these really fantastic faculty recruitment packages to give them state-of-the-art labs, PhD students, fellows, etc. And so I feel incredibly proud that I get to work with leaders like Scott and Chuck and Rita and Susie. I am personally based in Los Angeles, but as Chuck said, work across the Southwest, and I have colleagues who work across the country. We have 14 offices in America, but really cover all of the United States. And in addition to our lay leaders giving philanthropic support, they're also giving their time. They're helping us to organize events like this to help raise awareness about the Technion. They're helping to connect us to friends in their community, and it really is a big family, which I think the Levins and Leemasters can attest to that people really have found their friends. For me, I've developed friendships with lay leaders, developed friendships with my colleagues, and personally, I also am a supporter of ATS. I grew up in a house where we talked about Israel all the time. I'm a really proud Zionist, and when I was looking at organizations to work for, really the Technion merged so many of my personal passions and interests. So ensuring that the state of Israel is strong, ensuring that we're educating the next generation of scientists, entrepreneurs, engineers. For me, that was so special. And as Chuck mentioned, I had these connections. I was working with doctors who were giving Velcade to patients that they had, which was founded at Technion. We have one of my sister's business school classmate has used Rewalk, which was developed by an alumni of the Technion, and so it just, for me, bridged so many of my passions, and I couldn't feel more proud, because when Technion is strong, Israel is stronger. And so, yes, and I should also note that there are Technion societies around the world, so there's ones in Israel, Germany, but in places and countries that you may not realize that there are Technion societies, Japan, Argentina, Brazil, and so we really are a family in that as well.
We're everywhere. Thanks, Pam. We're lucky to have you. Scott, let me bring you into the conversation with some questions and topics. First, you are the current chairman of the University Board of Governors since 2019. What does that involve? And tell us what went on at the meeting you had earlier this summer in Haifa.
Thank you, Chuck. Before I get into that, though, I want to take a personal privileged moment and express my deep thanks to Chuck for being the point man on this project. He originated the idea, working with David in the Israel Committee, and started with the idea of having a conversation with a small group, and things have grown from there. It's just a pleasure to be here to talk to you, and I want to express my thanks directly to him. The Board of Governors is approximately 215 full-time members, plus additional honorary lifetime members who are not as active as they may have been at one time. We meet in June traditionally once a year. People come from all over the world. And as you know, this past year, circumstances were a little bit more challenging. One by one, airlines dropped the route to Israel. Those who did remain carriers, El Al and the Emirates and maybe one other, took the opportunity to charge, I won't use the word gouging prices, but it sure felt like it when we paid those numbers. But nevertheless, 115 people did come to the Board of Governors from around the world this year. And clearly they are the most passionate supporters. It's emotional, it's not logical, it's something deeper than that. It was a shorter program than usual. We usually start on a Shabbat dinner Friday night. The President has a welcoming dinner Saturday night, the meetings start on Sunday, and on Wednesday we conclude. This year was much abbreviated. There was no Shabbat dinner. The President's welcoming dinner was Sunday night, and it was a 3-day program in total. The opening event, the President's welcoming dinner, was outstanding. The highlight of the evening was to celebrate the 100th birthday of Amos Horeb. Does anyone here know who Amos Horeb was?
We do.
Yes, I should say, he's still around. He was born in 1924, the year that Technion was founded. So the logical connection was this was an outstanding celebration for that reason. He left school at the age of 17 to begin fighting with the Palmach. And from that, as events evolved, he eventually began a career with the IDF and became the IDF. And he can legitimately talk about the time David Ben-Gurion gave me this assignment. My goal is sent me to do this. He went to MIT to get a mechanical engineering degree. And when he returned to his duties, he was primarily focusing on tanks and other technical problems in that area. Eventually, he became the chief scientist of the IDF. In October of 1973, he became the president of the Technion, about 3 days before the Yom Kippur War broke out. So, it's sort of like a deja vu situation here. We have a terrible war situation. The current president, is dealing with the same situations that Amos had to deal with in 1973. A student reservist being called up and taken away, serving for long periods of scary situations, life-threatening situations, and having to return back to campus and take up their studies again. Even though that was a very challenging period, Amos was very effective as a leader and a manager of the situations that were confronting the university. The Technion managed to start its medical school during that time. Who could imagine? Very successful. It is an amazing institution. It has provided much better health care for the entire population of the country than had previously existed. And it was an outstanding achievement for him to have been able to do that at that time. The board of governors, because it is an Israeli institution, is required to be at least 50% plus one Israeli. The membership is actually managed in such a way. But the other members come from all over the world. They come from Australia, Argentina, Brazil, Japan, China. And they come to the meetings because they care passionately about what's going on and they want to contribute. There are standing committees that deal with basic management issues regarding academic affairs, physical development, by which I mean the campus itself, the structures, and so on. The emotional part of this is probably the most important. Next question.
Next question is related to that. I'm sure our audience would be particularly interested in what's happening right now in Israel, as we saw a little bit in the movie, with our student reservists, our faculty and staff. How is the university involved with Israelis at large at this time of war?
Well, first of all, when the war broke out, the government support system, social support system just basically collapsed. They just were not organized, they were not communicating properly. And private organizations, universities being among the most significant, picked up the pieces and created whatever systems they needed to get things done. You have something, you give something. You need something, you take something. In the north, refugees from the communities up there had to be dispersed across the country. Many of them ended up at the Technion. The dorms were basically vacant because the students were no longer there. The refugees came basically with just the clothes on their back. They were provided everything they needed, including psychological counseling, especially psychological counseling for children who were displaced. I happened to spend time at the Gaon Hotel during my visit there. Hotels were also giving over rooms to these refugees from the north. And it was an interesting experience to see children playing with their toys in the backyard behind the hotel. The 3,000 students were called up, plus about 500 faculty. Many of them served 100 days. Now just think of that. You're sitting in your classroom or about to start classes and you're gone for 3 months. It's just an incredible challenge to imagine. The first term actually started January 14th. Students returned, classes resumed, but as Chuck mentioned earlier, 24% of the student population are Israeli Arab. And you know that there are different opinions among those students. The Jewish students will have one opinion and a variety of opinions actually, and the Israeli Arabs would have another opinion. But when the student reservists came to campus, and the first term actually began January 14th, I asked myself, what is the campus going to be like? What will the student activity be like? Because I was seeing in our newspapers here what was going on our campuses and the types of issues that were occurring. And I was very proud when the first term was completed with no issues, no student protests, no student-on-student violence. As Maurice Vaughn says, we do not simply coexist in the same space. We are in each other's lives. We get to know each other. We get to become friends. On one of my visits, I actually saw a photograph. This was at the medical school. I saw a photograph that had been put up on the walls. Two female students who had reunited. They were hugging each other. They were in tears. One was a student reservist. She had just been released from her deployment and had come to campus. She was still wearing her student reservist uniform. The other was an Israeli Arab woman. And they were embracing each other because they were relieved. They were both still okay. It was a very emotional, just a photograph. It was a very emotional moment, clearly. During the EOG, one of the highlights for me and for everybody, I would say, was the dinner honoring the student reservists, expressing our appreciation to them, not just our appreciation, but reiterating to them our commitment to give them everything they need to succeed, to return to class. Tutoring, extra resources, psychological counseling. This is a big issue. You have to understand what they go through. They need help to get back to the mindset to sit down and focus on physics and chemistry and things like that. I had something I wanted to say to the younger reservists who were having dinner that night. I had been in Israel in 2014 during Operation Protective Edge. This was when the Iron Dome made its debut, but again, student reservists were called up, served in very harrowing circumstances, were injured, lost friends, and were emotionally shaken up. And among the cohort having dinner that night were young reservists who had just gone through the same or worse experiences. And I was imagining what was going through their minds about what's my future going to be? Can I resume my studies? Can I adjust? So I told the younger students, reservists, what I had observed about the now older reservists, because I've come in contact with some of them. They returned to campus. They resumed their studies. They finished their first and second degrees, their PhDs. Some went to medical school. Some are now permanent faculty. They have their own labs, their own graduate students studying with them. They have married with children. They are raising the next generation of Israeli society, the people who are going to keep Israel strong into the future. And there was, some came up to me afterwards and said, I was really having those thoughts, like, can I pick it up and do it again? And I said, yes, look around you, these people did it, they can help you. So that was another highlight for me. I want to share a little bit about, we've heard a lot of facts and figures, and I'm obviously trying to give you a different spin. I'm trying to share vignettes with you that illustrate what a special place this is and what a special president Maurice Vaughn is. He's an incredible individual as a scientist, but as a leader of this university, he is extraordinary. He has a rock solid moral compass. He has no doubts about what's right and wrong and what should be done. At one point earlier this year, a panel of the Knesset decided that they wanted to have a say about how the universities were reintegrating student reservists back onto campus. And they thought they had the wisdom to create a one-size-fits-all plan for all universities. And they were attempting to cram it down, make every university conform to what these politicians basically had dreamed up. And some of them appeared before the panel too. Some of the university presidents appeared to speak to the panel. Reed was one of them, and he is often considered one of the leaders of the university presidents in the Technion. And one of the members of the panel had been very vocal in expressing to these university presidents, screaming basically, what these university presidents should be doing for the students. And Uri said, "Excuse me, your yelling is not impressive. You never served. You were never in the reserves. You have no idea what it's like to be sitting in class and be called up, served for 100 days, and then asked to sit back down and start learning again." We need to treat every student as an individual, give them customized support, and that's what we're going to do. And the university presidents successfully resisted this arbitrary position that the politicians were trying to put down.
Thank you, Scott. I particularly am glad that you brought up some of these anecdotal things, like about Amos, about Uri's comments to Knesset, and so on. I think it really strikes people better than just the facts and figures. We need both, and I'm glad both of you have done that. One more question for you, Scott. Tell us about Technion's central role in protecting Israel's security and well-being from existential threats.
A large number of Technion alumni, and I'm sure you know this, have after graduation gone on to become employees at Raphael, IAI, and other defense contractors in Israel, and they sit down and use their brain power to create the technologies that keep Israelis safe. They created the Iron Dome, which debuted, as I said, in 2014. It is an amazing piece of technology, as I was saying to someone earlier. Some Israelis have decided that it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing in the sense that everyone feels more secure. It has saved who knows how many lives at this point. It saves more lives every day. But it gives you the impression that the threat is gone. But the threat's not gone. The threat's still there, as has been proven recently by Hamas. It's still an amazing piece of technology to thank God for it. Others are David Sling, Arrow 1, Arrow 2, Arrow 3, that extend the umbrella of protection up into beyond the Earth's atmosphere, basically. It's a similar but more intense technology as the Iron Dome. There's actually a miniature, what I would call a miniature version of the Iron Dome that protects tanks. So imagine a tank with a bubble of sensors and electronic and visual detection devices, and the threat is now an RPG team that's going to launch a rocket from close range at the tank. This happens so fast that a human in the tank would not have time to react and do anything, but the sensors are instantaneous. They know where the rocket is, and it defends the tank by waiting until the rocket is near the tank and launching an explosive package in its path. So the package explodes, the shrapnel destroys the RPG, and nothing hits the tank. It's an amazing, it's, in my opinion, an equal achievement to the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is more broadly applied, but human beings do not have the ability to react fast enough to protect themselves from an RPG attack. More recently, drones have become an important addition to the layers of protection. They can be manually controlled or robotically controlled. They can act independently, or they can act in what are called swarms, groups of drones that have been programmed for a certain objective. And if one drone is destroyed, the remaining can reassign the responsibilities and deal with the assignment. In the current problems we have in Gaza, the tunnel system, many of them have been booby-trapped. I would say the vast majority of them have been booby-trapped in an attempt to destroy IDF soldiers coming into them. So remote drones can be sent in and visually and through other sensors detect whether there are threats before any human being has to go in and risk their lives. The Technion has helped to prevent biological or chemical terrorism with the variety of chemicals in the process to test water and other substances. Testing sewage systems for COVID is an example of how this technology has been applied. Other viruses can also be detected. The Technion has developed what are called nanofibers that can be released into the air over a city, chemically treated in such a way that certain chemicals in the atmosphere will change the color of these fibers or have some other effect that will reveal the existence of threats in the atmosphere. Robotic snakes have been around for a while. Technion has developed these some years ago. These can be operate remotely or also be operated by human beings. They can be used to enter into a collapsed building if there's been an earthquake. And these snakes have been used around the world in different countries that have earthquake problems. They can navigate through the rubble. They can search for injured people. They can deliver medications or water or food to those that are trapped until they can be released. It's a very quiet technology. Many people don't even know about it. You don't see it in the news stories, but in almost every earthquake situation where you know that an earthquake has occurred, it's very often the case that an Israeli team has been there or is there with a robotic snake helping out.
I just wanted to add one more thing that might have briefly been mentioned in one of the videos, but Technion has the only faculty of aerospace engineering in Israel. And so it really makes it incredibly unique to be able to do much of the research. And as Scott said, many of our alumni then go on to Rafael, IAI, Elbit, various leadership roles in the defense industry and have really built the defense industry. And I wanted to note that because I think it's a little tidbit that most people don't know, that Technion has been so inextricably linked to Israel's security and really the research aspect of it. And I will also say that a lot of the research that's done for security, then those ideas are used for civilian ways. They may be transformed into ideas for medicine and biotech. And so it's used in a myriad of ways to not only help ensure that Israel is secure, but really the world.
Hold on to that, Pam. We need a break from Scott.
I'm sure you do.
Technion has a medical school, which I think a lot of us will find interesting. What are some of the medical breakthroughs achieved at the medical school? Tell us some of the highlights.
Sure, happy to. And yes, as mentioned, we do have a medical school. So it was established back in the 60s. It was integrated into the Technion around 1973, and it's only one of a handful of medical schools that are associated with an engineering school in the world, and the only one in Israel. So I do love just how unique Technion is in so many areas, and that really does give the university advantage in addressing challenges of human health from the bench to the bedside. There is also an affiliation with Rambam, which is the largest hospital medical center in the north. It's also affiliated with 5 other hospitals around the country. So the Technion Faculty of Medicine has about 100 researchers and research groups, which is really quite amazing. We have the Technion Cancer Center, which brings together various faculties, and within there we have 2 Nobel laureates. We have Aaron Shekanover, and also Avram Hershko, who together they founded the ubiquitin system, which was really helpful the cornerstone for understanding cancers and was the foundation for developing the cancer Velcade. We have the Print Center, which is for neurodegenerative disorders of the brain and looking really at how the brain is working and mapping it, and that's looking at diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, Huntington's disease, MS. The drug Azilect for Parkinson's was discovered on the lab benches of Technion. Technologies such as NovaCure, which is a cap that sends out electromagnetic fields for deadly brain cancers. I shouldn't say deadly. There's been rapid diagnostic tests for COVID. I was talking to someone earlier about a sticker that was created for masks, especially early on in COVID, to help, and I'm hoping those are still used. The pill cam, which is the tiny little camera that you can swallow in and helps to take a picture of your digestive system. The sniff film, which was created by one of our Arab Israeli professors, Hossam Hayek, and so you can sniff into a phone and it takes the chemicals of your breath to be able to identify 32 different types of cancers for early detection. Professor Shulamit Levenberg, who's part of our Faculty of Biotechnology and Engineering, which is also one of the only ones in Israel and one of a few around the world. So she heads up a tissue lab, and so she's been able to do things in two different areas of human health. Her lab has been able to really cultivate tissue and de novo tissue growth, which is really important because for people who might need a bone graft, if you were to do that, typically you're taking it from one part of your body, trying to shape it and trying to fit it in. So that's painful. Then you're having two different sites of surgery in essence, which isn't great. And so they were able to cultivate tissue in a lab to be able to form it so that it would really fit best, and it took, which was really wonderful. They also used it in rats who had spinal injuries, and they were able to create tissue flaps. They were able to inject it and help to regenerate, and the rats were able to walk a little bit. So that's just at that level, but we hope in one day soon it will be beyond that. Their lab has also been able to create functional aesthetic implants for those who have congenitally deformed ears, which is really quite incredible. So that is almost on a smaller level. On the flip side, Professor Levenberg has also been working on cultivated 3D meat. Her lab actually cultivated the first 3D printed ribeye steak in the world. And she has a spin-off that was created. It's called Aleph Labs. As a little anecdote, Leonardo DiCaprio, you know, he and I are on first name basis, Leo. Leonardo DiCaprio invested in her Aleph Labs. And so that is something that's more on a larger scale because it's really looking to address sustainability and food shortages. There's environmental implications with that as well. So I would say within the Faculty of Medicine and really in like our biomedicine, there have been so many. And I should say you should check out our book of innovations that was at one of the front desks, because that will also highlight a lot of the innovations that have come out of the Technion as well.
Yeah, you've just tipped the iceberg with all those things.
There's so many that I wish that I could pick more, and maybe after we can talk about it.
You did talk a little bit about a couple of our Nobel laureates. Do you want to talk more about that? And also Professor Sheckman, you didn't mention.
Sure.
Yes, so as mentioned, Technion has 3 Nobel laureates, which is really quite incredible of a small-ish university in Israel. So as I mentioned, Aaron Shulchanhover and Avram Hershko, who helped create the ubiquitin system. And then Dan Shechtman, who discovered quasi-crystals, which is a new form of matter. And I know when I heard quasi-crystals, I was like, what? However, it is something that you need and that you don't even realize that you're using it all the time, because it's used in frying pans, it's used in dental surgery instruments, it's used in LED lights. I have my notes here somewhere that I've now lost, the other places that it has been in, but
Syringes.
yes, in razor blades and in acupuncture needles. So many things that you need to use.
I'll tell a little anecdote about the 3 Nobel laureates that I had personal experience with. Early in our career, Scott, when we were in Israel, I was honored to introduce Professor Shulchanhover at a lecture in front of the whole university. It was quite an honor. I'll never forget that. He's at the Cancer Institute there at Technion. Professor Hershko came to Los Angeles to make speeches and so on. And I happened to be at the office, and he said, "Where are you going?" "You're going out." I said, "I'm making a fundraising solicitation meeting." He said, "Can I come?" I got a Nobel laureate with me. "Of course you can come." Well, we went to see a person, and it was the easiest solicitation I ever made. I just let Professor Hershko did it. And then when Dan Sheckman came to town, I was his designated driver to take her from this meeting to that meeting. So the university is small enough, if you will, that we have those kind of contacts and relationships we can have, and that's a real special thing. Scott, back to you. Could you talk a little bit about some of Technion's departments that are impacting the 21st century? I wrote down 4 or 5 of them that are just amazing. They're like computer science, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, quantum physics, water work, aerospace, biotechnology, and food engineering you got into a little bit. Talk to us about a couple of those areas.
Well, you mentioned water. That would come to my mind first, actually. Israel is obviously a desert country. From the day the country was founded, water desalination has been a priority, and they have dedicated many, many years of research into improving methods, making them more productive and more efficient. If you looked at a satellite photo of the Earth from, say, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, you would see a lot of brown and not much green. If you saw that same photograph today, you would see a lot of green and not much brown. Water desalination has been a huge success. Technion's contribution has been to develop new membranes, new vessels to process the water, and efficiencies have improved dramatically. Israel is the world's leading authority on desalination. California has used their technology up and down the coast, and other countries as well. And if you're in a neighborhood where your unfriendly neighbors don't have enough water, if you have enough water you can share, you become, some of the tensions go away. Along with desalination, water treatment is a specialty of the Technion. They treat water to serve multiple purposes. Sometimes the water doesn't have to be completely pure. If you're using it for agricultural purposes, it doesn't have to be completely processed to be drinkable, and so on. That is another technology that is added to the availability of water. And one of the most significant worldwide is the development of drip irrigation. It was developed in Israel, again with the Technion alumni started a company called Netavim. It is now a global powerhouse in drip irrigation technologies, very successful, huge. And by their estimates, there are 1 billion people on Earth that have adequate water to drink and to raise crops and feed themselves. And without drip irrigation, they would be hard-pressed to have enough water to drink and certainly not enough water to feed themselves. Let's see, computer science you mentioned. The first PC that IBM ever built was powered by an Intel chip called the 8088, and some of us may be old enough to remember that number, but Intel happens to be celebrating their 50th year of production of chips in Israel. And if you consider the number of wars that have occurred in those 50 years, Intel has never missed a shipment, despite those challenges, which is something they're very proud of.
I have 2 of my cousins working at Intel. Cousins.
Well, the original 88 processor was designed in Haifa at Intel's lab. I'm not sure there were Technion graduates involved. Another little known or maybe even unknown piece of technology is called the LZW algorithm. It was developed by mathematicians at the Technion back in the 70s, I think. It is what is called a lossless, make this right, a lossless data compression algorithm. When you speak into your cell phone, a little device converts the sound of your voice into a string of zeros and ones, and those zeros and ones are sent through the whatever medium, and at the other end, another device turns it back into the sound of your voice. Well, the speed with which that data stream is transmitted is critical. The faster it goes, the more efficient everything that is done with digital technology is. This algorithm is able to look at the string of zeros and ones and analyze it and remove some of them without losing any of the information. It's interesting concept. If you go online, you can look at this technology and understand half of it. I feel like I at least don't understand half of it. It is an amazing concept if you think about it. That was developed at the Technion by mathematicians called Limpel and Zeev. It was used by Adobe in the early days. I remember having an Adobe product that every time we used it, it said this product includes an implementation of the LZW Anybody else here old enough to remember that?
You're the oldest, so I doubt it.
Right, okay. I look at it, I know that. The cellular telephone, instant messaging, the USB drive, Waze, the navigation system, mobile eye, which is ubiquitous on electric vehicles now and self-driving cars, WhatsApp, drone technology, are all applications that are dependent on Technion's computer science alumni. A few years ago, MIT came to Haifa and did an evaluation of Technion's computer science program, the faculty, the facilities, the curriculum, and said, you know what, it's as good as ours, which was reassuring. Quantum technology appears to be something of a holy grail. Technion is deeply involved in research in this area. Nanotechnology is President Sivan's personal backyard. He and his students focus on, as they describe it, the boundary between nanoscale electronics and biological processes. Now, I really don't understand how that works. But he is recognized as a world authority. He was the founding director of the Russell Berry Nanotechnology Center in Israel, Israel's first nanotechnology center, and one of the first of its kind in the world. Okay.
Very good. Haven't want to add anything, or that's pretty comprehensive. One more for you, Scott. Many in our audience might not know that Technion has a campus in America. And that came about with Mayor Michael Bloomberg's contest in New York to establish a new high-tech university in New York City. Who won that contest? And is there also a campus in China?
Well, Michael Bloomberg's dream was to establish a section somewhere in New York that would mimic Silicon Valley in California. He was jealous of all the economic development that was happening out there. And he said, well, what can I do? He created a competition among institutions to propose projects and ideas about establishing an institute. And he personally called Paris Levy, who was president of the Technion at that time, and urged the Technion to participate. Now, the Technion doesn't have a lot of money by U.S. standards, and as an Israeli institution, there was no way that the money that the Israeli government was giving the Technion was ever going to go to New York. So the Technion partnered with Cornell, and they won the competition. Cornell has a huge footprint in New York, have for years, and they have tons of money. What they needed to win this competition was the Technion's entrepreneurial expertise and the ability to teach graduate students how to be entrepreneurs. What are the challenges? How to take your brilliant idea and make a product and commercialize it. So in 2013, on Roosevelt Island, which is in the East River at about Midtown Manhattan, a new campus started to take shape, and it is now a beautiful, modern, it's almost a work of art in itself. It's spectacular. And in this facility, the Technion part of it is to take budding entrepreneurs, graduate students who have a brilliant idea that they may have patented already, or if not, show them how to patent it, how to find funding, how to develop it into a product and launch it. So it is hugely successful. This began in 2013. In 2015, another mover and shaker, I guess, a very influential person globally, decided he wanted to make the world a better place. Li Ka-shing is a billionaire, a very successful man, started out making plastic flowers in China, and is now into almost any industry you can think of. Containerized shipping, containers, the big boxes you see on ships, all the blue ones are his, and there are many of them. He has utilities in Australia, he has all sorts of things, but he has a philanthropic side, a make the world a better place side. His dream was to create a technical institute in China, and his dream was to partner that institute with Shanghai University in Guangdong, which is China's Silicon Valley, if you will. And his team circled the globe looking for competent institutes who could be his partner, and they chose the Technion. So the Technion broke ground. In China, things happen very fast if you're talking about construction. The first thing they do is they build a dorm for the workers who want to be there 24/7 until this project is done, and that's how they work. They built a campus in just an amazingly short period of time. The institute is called the Guangdong Technion Israel Institute of Technology. I'll just share a personal moment. When Susie and I were in China, we were heading toward this campus. We had never been there before. We passed a traffic sign on the road that said, Guangdong Technion Israel Institute of Technology. I jumped out of my seat. I just never anticipated seeing anything like that in China. It was just, anyway. They, at this point, have graduated 5 or 6 cohorts. The goal is to have 5,000 students. Some people ask me about what about all the strategic technologies Israel knows about and the scary thing of China having them. That's not what's going on there. The curriculum there is limited to 3 things: improving the quality of the air, improving the quality of the food, improving the quality of the water. And if you've ever been to Beijing, you know improving the quality of the air is direly needed. But it's successful. We'll see how far it goes. China's government has changed quite a bit in the years since this began, but so far so good. We'll see how that goes.
I would just remind everybody that Technion has ties with over 200 universities around the world for research and collaboration, which is really something. Scott, what would you say are the primary differences, talking about universities, between or among Technion and some of Israel's other universities? There are some excellent ones.
Well, Israel is strictly a technical institute. They do not get distracted with religion or law, philosophy, psychology, some of the other programs that you would find at Human University, IFRU, and so on. Those are good universities also, but Technion focuses strictly on the hard stuff. It is the oldest chartered university. It predates the state of Israel. It was founded when Haifa was still part of the Ottoman Empire. It produces the most advanced technical graduates of any Israeli university. And I get asked quite often, actually, about, well, what about Weizmann? Weizmann's an amazing research institute. Yes, it is. It's an amazing research institute. They have come up with some amazing, life-altering ideas. They have no undergraduates. Many people don't realize that. They have only master's candidates and PhD candidates. At this moment, they have 1,000 students on campus. Well, okay, that's great. They're great students, but what is that going to do for the state of Israel as a grand enterprise? Total, they only have 100. As I said, they only have 1,000 students on campus at the moment. Technion has awarded over 125,000 degrees to more than 100,000 graduates since its founding. These are the people who built the country, protect the country, purify the water, and provide drinking water to their neighbors, just changing the world. That's my answer.
We've only got about 5 more minutes before we turn it over to Q&A, so I'm going to ask you, Scott, to answer these as best you can in that short time. And the first topic is the scourge of anti-Semitism, which we're finding all over the world. Has the Technion encountered efforts by other universities to exclude it and other Israeli universities from conferences, academic boycotts, that whole issue? And let me just read the other question, and you can spend your time on either one or both. Technion will be a stabilizing force as Israel deals with polarizing political problems. Talk about that. There's sharp political tensions in Israel. How is Technion reacting and helping with that?
Well, the question of anti-Semitism, in the planning for this year's BOG, I invited Jeff Abrams, who's the CEO of ADL in Los Angeles, to attend and participate in a panel discussion on this topic, and he did. And he shared some startling and nauseating statistics tracking the sudden huge spike in anti-Semitism in the United States, and we see it on our college campuses. It's amazing to me how virulent it is. But around the world, I went to London last November, and there was a big pro-Hamas rally in London, and it was scary what's happened to London in the last 20 years. Paris also is under dire threat. And it does impact the university. Technion researchers, the world of research is all about collaboration, partnering with researchers in other institutions in other parts of the world and sharing their ideas and stimulating each other. And Israeli students are very good at this. Researchers are very good at this and have been doing it for a long time. And they are starting to see unprecedented challenges. One researcher I know, I was asking him about this, and he says, I've begun to receive paperwork, which I've always received packets for new projects and qualifying and getting approvals. He said, I have a new question now on these documents. Have you ever committed a war crime? And the institute that sent him that packet will not be hearing from him again. He will not be giving them the benefit of his knowledge and efforts to succeed ever again. But these are factors that are happening, and anti-Semitism will be on our agenda also next year at the Board of Governors, and we'll see what's going on.
You want to go through Scott? Yeah.
I was just going to quickly note, in response to the rising anti-Semitism here on college campuses in the US and in Europe, Technion is launching for next summer a program to integrate English language speaking students into the undergraduate program, because right now the undergraduate programs, except for one faculty, the Mechanical of Engineering, are all taught in Hebrew. At the graduate level, if there's one student who wants it in English, the classes are taught in English. But this is a way to give students, American students, European students, it's open to Jews and non-Jews, an opportunity to study in Israel at an incredible institution, to really learn more about Israel, have a new perspective of Israel. And so it's a very exciting program that we hope to report more on to you.
Anything else, Scott, on the political dimension?
Yeah, I think this is a strong point to close on. This is the last question. I think it's a good place for it. If you think about the founding of Israel and the founding of the Technion, I should say, founding of the Technion, and what the social mores were, the attitudes were about capabilities of men versus capabilities of women, and differences between races, and so on and so forth. From day one, the moral clarity of the Technion has demanded that this institute is open to all, regardless of race, religion, gender,
gender identity,
race, religion,
gender preference,
race, religion, nationality. I've said that so many times, I can't forget that. And that is the ethic by which it lives today, and it is helping Israel shape itself into a liberal country that has some ways to go, but the Technion is all in on that effort. During the past year, when judicial reforms were proposed, they were proposals that would have advantaged some Israelis at the cost of others. And Sivan stood up and said, no, that's not the way we're going. And he marched with Technion students carrying the Technion banner to protest these ideas. This is not what the world's about. This is not what the Technion's about. And we live by that dynamic.
We're going to close out right now. Thank you so much for coming. We hope this has been interesting and informative for you.
Thank you.
Maybe it's okay to come up and talk to us afterwards if you like, and let me be among the first to wish everybody a happy and healthy New Year. Shana Tov.